mental disorder. Common. It's very common. Globally, it's estimated that 5% of adults suffer from this disorder. It is characterized by persistent sadness. Now, when I look at you, I am getting worried if I'm speaking to people who are depressed. So one of the things that you'll know that someone is depressed is what? Persistent sad. It's not sadness, but persistent sadness. Lack of interest or pleasure in previously rewarding or enjoyable activities. The things you loved doing and you could enjoy. You could find pleasure in such things. But completely now you don't enjoy, or your friend doesn't enjoy. And as we even talk about depression, think about yourself, think about your colleague, think about your family member, think about a friend somewhere. You're just wondering why they're not even able to join you for choir. They're not even able to, enjoy the songs. Enjoy some nice activities that they used to love there before. And that could be one of the characteristics. It can also disturb sleep and appetite. Sleep and appetite. How is that? Is that common? Do you sometimes find yourself you have no appetite even for the best meal? Kuna chakula. Every time when I'm coming from church, we're driving along this place. Kuna chakula mnakulanga hapa nje. Sijui kama ni chapati and then unapata umemwaga kitu kingine ya red. Almost everyone is sitting that. What is that? Huh? Smocha. What is that? It's a combination of what? I've always wanted to stop and even get one. Not to eat, but just to have a look at it. It's what and what? Smoky na chapo. So ni chapo, alafu smoky, alafu kachumbari, alafu tomato sauce. And then? And chumvi. So if that is what you love, and then you realize all of a sudden you have no appetite for such, then it is telling you that you are depressed. All of us we have our favorite meals or the food or snack. Right? But even when you look at, you have an opportunity of even accessing such, you don't enjoy yourself. It means that you have a problem. And so these are the red flags that you need to take care of. Because if you might think it's a normal thing, it's going to land you into trouble as a young person. And of course, we've talked about, it disturbs what also? Sleep. Tiredness and poor concentration are common. You'll sit in class and you can't concentrate for the first 20 minutes. Need 5 minutes and you are gone. You have a problem. And this is very common with the young people at campus. Tiredness and poor concentration. And you'll hear people telling you, Pastor, pray for me. What is it? Of late, I don't concentrate. My professor will come to class and I do not really concentrate. I don't even understand what they are saying, what he's teaching, even on very basic concepts. Now, depression is a leading cause of disability around the world, and it contributes greatly to the global burden of disease. In other words, when you talk about the depression, it is the genesis of quite a number of diseases that young people suffer from. When you are depressed, one of the things that is affected in your life is the immunity system. And once your immunity system is affected, then that paves way to infections and several attacks in your life. Do you sometimes realize when you are depressed, you probably have a problem with how your skin behaves? Rashes come from nowhere. You haven't changed the climate. You have not changed your diet. You have not changed anything, but there's a problem with your skin. Now the problem again is when your immunity is affected and your skin talks to you that there's a problem, and because you are depressed, you pick on the wrong medication, and then you end up messing yourself even much more. Very common. So, depression is a leading cause of what? Disability. Disability. Around the world, and I've said it contributes greatly to the global burden of what? Disease. The effects of depression can be long lasting or recurrent, and can dramatically affect a person's ability to function and live a rewarding life. The causes of depression include complex interactions between social, psychological, and biological factors. But listen to this, and this is very important for you young people. Life events such as childhood adversity, loss, and sometimes unemployment contribute to and may catalyze the development of depression. Sometimes when, and these are some of the things we teach, even the sermons that we are getting here, even last evening I was listening to our guest speaker. What basically was talking to us is, if you're not very keen, where you come from, that can really cause you a problem. I saw when he asked the question, what can you do if you realize that for sure your mother is a thief? That question sent me thinking, my mother, she's called Jane, a thief. Na hajawekelewa ukweli ni mwizi. Now let's even forget that. I mean, think about how much is happening from home and you feel you are carrying that burden. And so if you don't know how to, and one of the things, and allow me to pick that as a point of reference, is that it doesn't matter what is really happening in your background. It could be, yes, your father and your mother, they have their own issues, your brothers have their own issues. That is not an excuse for you to have an issue. Because Joseph, regardless of the parents and the brothers who were murderers and rapists, what happened? He was not influenced by the circumstances that surrounded him. And so you have no excuse, child of God. You're not going to come and tell us, look here, I have this problem from home. Yes, and that is the reason as well we are seated here. If you're already hit by this, then find a way of handling it. So, childhood adversity. And I want to ask a question. What are some of the examples of the childhood adversities that people go through that affect them later in adulthood or when they are still growing up? Let me hear this from you. Some of the things young people go through when they are young, sometimes they don't speak about such, but later on, it really affects them later in life. I want to share with you one. How many of you know Malema? Is it Malema? There's this South African, that politician, right? How many of you like him? I know. I don't know whether I like him or I don't, but I think I know him. When you hear him speak about what he went through in childhood, then you know he has not recovered. Now, most recently I discovered in one of his debates when he said that while he was a young boy, the attackers broke into their house and they uncovered his mother. And he saw, how do you erase not the picture of the invader, but you seeing your mother being uncovered? Na zile kufunuliwa hivi na kufunika, walimfunua and they searched her thoroughly if she had any weapon. And this happened as Malema watched. Do you think that is going to affect him for the rest of his life? And I want to believe anytime he sees a white person, he remembers that. And so if you don't know how to go about some of the things and the challenges you went through when you were young, those are going to affect you. And at some particular point, you're going to have mood swings and so on. And sometimes you're going to even lose trust and so on and so forth. When you hear ladies say, men are dogs, don't just laugh. Because they have experienced a particular dog in life. This dog could be the father. The dog could be the boyfriend. The one who broke her virginity after swearing that between you and me, nothing will come in between. Only for this dog to disappear. So some of those things that happen in our childhood, let me hear. What are some of the things that people go through when they are young and they affect them as they are growing up? Let me hear from the floor. I'm not asking what you went through now. Praise God. But again, if you want to share with us that experience, we will appreciate. We will appreciate. I thank God. My parents are now born again. Praise God. I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church. And by the way, I could be a priest today. I could be Father Bhen. Oh, yeah, Father Bhen. But it didn't work out for me. And so I grew up in a very abusive family. I could see my father beat my mother. Yes. And we knew when the fight was almost beginning. Because the first thing he could do was to switch off the lights. When the lights have been switched off, there's just an evita. And do you know, I grew up, and I forgot I was a man. I grew up not trusting any man around me because I knew any man, when he gets closer to you, chances of hitting you are very high. Did it affect me? Yes, it did. It did. You want to share with us something? Yes? Sorry? A child verbally abused. How many of you here, when you were young, somehow your parents used to call you Pundai? And you almost believed you were a donkey. Sini kweli? Verbally. Na nimetumia donkey because I am here. And I'm on record. Some of you were being abused with the local dialect. Na jina ile local dialect haikuangi ya mnyama. Inakuanga ya sehemu ya mwili ya binadamu. Sini kweli? Yes. And this is your mother. This is your elder sister. This is your elder brother. And they could just abuse you verbally. And I'm telling you that when you have those kind of adversities, when you are young, do not be in denial that it never happened. It's important that you accept it happened and find a way of walking past. Some of us, we still have this bitterness because of the experiences we went through when we used to live with some relatives. How many of you have ever stayed with relatives who mistreated you? Can you resonate with that? Relatives? How many of you are seated here and you mistreated your other cousins from the village when they came visiting? You know, sometimes we say, oh, people were mistreated, but the mistreaters are here. Even when you mistreat that cousin, that auntie, you know, you come from a well-off family, the sister to your mother comes visiting, and she begins washing clothes around. And then you begin telling her, auntie, chapati zako zitakuanga tamu. No, you only want her to give you cheap labor for the 2 weeks amekuja kuwasalimia. And you think it's not going to affect you? It will! The only challenge is sometimes you don't know how to talk about, who to share this with. How many of us have parents who are bullies? You know your mother, she's a bully. And you know it. It's affecting you. How do you feel when your mother shouts at your father and you are there as a man? Na umemea ndevu. Mpaka unafanyia mama yako hivi. Naoni, you're trying to remind her, Mom, I'm old. Don't do that. She does it. Something else we go through as young people. Yes. Child molestation. Who can talk about that? How many girls here can say, look here, my uncle touched my private parts? Sometimes even when you say that, who will even trust you? Sometimes you share and then you realize your sister was touched. You also touched by the same uncle. And your sister will tell you, I reported, I was beaten. Then you're like, you reported, you were beaten. So if I report, I'll be beaten. You live with it. How many can talk about these things? Now, when you don't find a way of, allow me to use this term, to ventilate this early, when you grow up, this is going to bring about mood swings. I have an aunt of mine, every time when we used to visit her, every time we could go visit, she could tell my mother that I should not go with her. An aunt, first cousin to my mother. And I could see Every time they're going to visit, nabaki. Every time nabaki. One day we were in town, we met, and then the driver was asked to drop me home. That thing disturbed me. And so one day we met at some funeral, and I confronted her. I said, Auntie, she's called Monica. If there's a Monica here, I'm sorry. What is the problem? I really want to visit, but she opened up. She told me, listen to me. The problem is not you. The problem is your name. The first man who hurt me was by the name Bhen. And anytime I see anyone by the name Bhen around me, I lose my moods. So please, stay at your home. Never visit me. Because if you come, you will spoil my day. This person was hurt. So ukipata watu wanakukataa, it's not because of what you have done, but it's because who you look like, the name you have. So do you change names around? Because if you change from Bhen to Alex, now you might find out Alex did something worse. You would rather remain with Bhen. All right. Yes, there was another hand somewhere. Yes, my brother. So much criticism, whether positive or negative. It will cause problems later on in life. Yes? Yes. Physically abused. Nice to see you. The guy fixed my laptop. Yeah, but I paid him. I hope you gave tithe. I'll check on the receipts. It's a wonderful young man. Thank you so much. I really asked where you were. I asked your friend yesterday. It's nice to see you. Physically abused. How many of us were physically abused when we were young? In the name of quote and unquote discipline. Imagine, unachapa pako na imagine, hii nao si ya makosa. Mamaka anakuuma because he has issues with your father. And the problem is that because you look exactly like your father. So anakuuma, na sio kwa makosa ya sukari kulamba. Una imagine, nimelamba mara moja, nimeumwa hivi. Mama tongeniambia ninunue tu, nifanye kazi nikununulie kama ni 50 kilos. Physical abuse. It has been there. The last one, yes. Some happen because of nature, for example. Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah. It will affect you. We are coming there. It will affect you. If you see your parents suffer, maybe because of some ailment. How many of you have parents who are diabetic, and you have to see them inject themselves every now and again? Every morning anachukua shindano, anainua kama ni sweta ama ni shati, anachukua shindano. Anajidunga, ukiangalia wamejidunga mpaka wana uchungu tena. And do you think that will give you peace of mind? It will not. What we are saying is, some of these things we have no control. Now, let me ask you, young person. If, for instance, your father or your parents are diabetic or they have pressure, what controls do you have? Do you have any control? No. But you have to agree that that is going to hit back to you. It's very important to realize that. Now, and that's exactly what you're saying. The family history. This is very important. And of course, there's no scientific evidence about this. They can't find a specific gene that runs in a particular family to say that if you're born in a family where people get depressed, easily you will be depressed. But there is empirical evidence that if you come from a family where people get depressed so easily, chances are that you can also be depressed. And that's why we tell you people, as you are getting someone and you are loving them, umependa mtu mpaka ukiangalia hivi mbele, you don't see any color, ni yeye unaona. Don't just use your heart. Use also your head. Establish some of these things. And we tell people, we don't tell you to never marry such a person, but marry them knowing unapeleka nani. So when things happen, it's not a surprise to you. Are you following me? Someone was asking me, Pastor, I love this girl so much, but you know now I've just discovered she's 2 years older than me. Unajua paka hapo, ameanza kusema, anajua it's not right. So he only wants a rubber stamp from a pastor. Can I go ahead? I also have no answer. Because again, you know, if she's older than you, we shall be talking about relationships, by the way, tomorrow. I've prepared something brief for you. If someone is older than you, It does not mean that you cannot be able to make a couple. You will make a couple, but a suffering one. You will suffer. You will suffer. You will suffer, baba. Utachoka kwa hiyo mapenzi. Because anything you bring on the table ni ya utoto. Na si ati ni ukweli ni utoto. Unaleta very good idea, but because she's older than you, ana improve, so inakuwa idea yake. Am I still your friend? Ama tumemalizana. The good thing is that I don't know any one of you here. I know of couples that are married and the age difference is there, and they come to church and they're waiting for the second coming of Christ, and they're all Christians, but I'll tell you, they're suffering. They're suffering. And as a lady, you will strain. Hakuna kitu kibaya kama kuolewa na mtu ambaye umeshinda miaka. Now, because, let me tell you something, my ladies. Befriending kakijana ambao umeshinda mwaka miwili mitatu ni kuwa na katoto kamekomaa kwa maisha yako. You will have trouble. Because every time what he says, it doesn't make sense to you. So you have to find a way of getting sense out of this old young fella in your life. I shouldn't preempt that. We'll pick on that tomorrow. So thank you. Family background is very important. And so you need to understand that sometimes some of these things, they run in a family setting. Number two, I'm talking about the causes. Talk about the illnesses and the health issues. This can cause depression. Now, you don't know what it means when you have a sick brother, you have a sick sister, you have a brother with this Down syndrome. You know what that means? You have parents who are not able to support themselves because they are physically challenged. This will have adverse effects in your life. I have seen some people even fearing to marry because when they look at their background, there's so much that is happening there, and they fear they do not want to bring such that is happening in their family forth. Where I sit from as a pastor, I listen to these things. I see young men who are done with college, they're working, they're driving, they're built very nice house, and then you're like, why are you not marrying? Then they open and tell you, Pastor, I can't marry. What is it? In our family, there's a problem with epilepsy. And because I have survived it, chances are one or two of my children will have this problem. So I do not want to get myself there. So before you charge people, just get to understand what they're going through and why they're not making some decisions in life. Sawa sawa. Sawa sawa. Okay. So tumesema nini? Illness and what? And the health issues. Something else that can cause depression is medication, drugs, and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol. Oh, drugs and alcohol. What are some of the drugs we use when we are at campus? Ni kama gani? Huh? Now let's talk about these things, yes? Pombe. Some of the drugs, and they're very cheap, ziko hapa nje. Kuna bangi, si ndio? Yeah, kuna bangi, Miraa, kuchana, si ndio? And what else? Yeah, talk about that. Unaweka hapa chini. Na huwezi realize anatafuna ako hapa, lakini ana change kama amesimama. Anabadilika polepole hivi within 10 minutes. Amechange. Anaanza kuongea very fluent English. Na sijuangi English ya kubeli natokanga wapi because haikuangi kwa head. Because akiwa soba mwambie ongea, hana nothing. The only problem is that you think that English you will have it in the exam. So some of them tried. Kwa sababu amesikia kwamba ukiwa kunywa bangi, anaongea mtu akinywa bangi, there are concepts and theories that come naturally. So anavuta, anaenda kwa exam room. Anafika hapa amenyamanza, ameangalia, anangoja aletewe paper ya mtihani, na kumbe paper ilikuja kitambo. Then kidogo anaambiwa 30 minutes. Anauliza 30 minutes, kwani where is the exam? That's crazy. So when you realize that you are in drugs, and listen to me, young people, whether you are in drugs, whether you were introduced, whether somehow you found yourself there, hope is not lost for you. There's always a way out. Amen. We're going to talk about how do you get out of this. We are coming there. It doesn't matter. It is all us. Look at me. Look up, everyone. Stop writing. Are you looking at me? Another struggle. How do you know that you are also depressed? When you find yourself you're so much into pornography and masturbation. This is the only way men hide. The other day, I was talking to the men at my church at Karengata during the Amo prayer breakfast. And we were looking at the subject, how men cry. Oh, sorry, when men cry. That was the subject. And we discovered men cry in different ways. Men, you rarely see their tears. But some cry, like me. And by the way, strongest men cry. Oh, we cry. Crying is not a weakness. It's for the strong men. So if you have a boyfriend who cries, you are lucky. Ana umama, huyo ni mbaba. Kona umama, huyo analia. Men cry. But I will tell you that one of the ways that men cry is by falling into pornography and masturbation. And people struggle with this. Very common at campus. There are people who have no girlfriend, but they're into masturbation. They have nothing, but they find pleasure in pornography. A serious problem, a serious challenge. We'll find a way of handling this later on. They also say that personality can be one of the causes of you being depressed. Personality. We have these other personalities that easily get depressed. And which is this personality you think might be, which is this personality that might lead one to being depressed? Melancholic. Another one? Phlegmatic. Yes. Acha nikwambie, hakuna mbaya kama sanguine. Yeah. These people who talk a lot, they get depressed. There are people when they are so depressed, they will give you all the stories, even the stories that are not real. There are people who will give you a summary of the newspaper, not because they love the news, but because they are depressed. There are people when they are depressed, they eat a lot, right? They eat, and they put on a lot of weight. Others, when they are depressed, they don't eat. When we say that it affects appetite, we didn't say that it stops you from eating. Others in our affect positively. They eat a lot. That is the problem I have with my wife. If she's depressed in the house, I will know. So what we do if she's depressed, we make sure that where we lock the food, she can't access the keys. Yeah, because she can wake up at night to go cooking. Amenda wapi? Ako jikoni.